Chapter 23. Early the next day, Brandela and her maidservants began their journey out of the Wood Elven forest. It was a solemn and silent procession of women. The news of their banishment, and the reason for it, had come as quite a shock to most of them. Many of them were frightened at the prospect of leaving the protection of the forest and saddened by the fact that they would never see their families again. Only Ryyah was excited. They were heading for the eastern clans. Her mother's people. She, alone, was looking forward to this adventure. Brandela led the maidens out of the forest and along the river, heading eastward. As they traveled, she spent time with each of the young women, getting to know them and trying to boost their spirits. She spent most of her time with Ryyah, who filled her in on what had happened to them all after she had been kidnapped.
The slavers burned the village of Eldergate and killed a great number of the citizens before making off with you and the other prisoners. I had used all of my strength trying to stop them and lost consciousness. I'm sorry. I tried.
You have nothing to be sorry for,
Brandela assured her.
None of us could have stopped them, I don't think. Garrock's army was very strong, and he was being assisted by some clever shadow elven magic. No one is to blame.
Ryyah nodded and continued her story.
High Lord Aiden arrived 2 days later, and it was I who informed him of your disappearance. He was furious and, well, let's just say he didn't share your view of whether we were to blame or not for letting anyone get to you. He sent us back to the capital to await your return, and that's exactly what we've been doing. Your mother, Lady Alusha, was very kind to all of us and set your nurse Nina to the task of training us in the serving arts. She also allowed those of us who wished to continue with our scholarly training. She arranged for me to study with some of the best archmages. I've studied source magic, used for protection and healing, and practiced daily so that when you returned, nothing like this could ever happen again. When we heard that you had returned to the forest, your mother was overjoyed and prepared us to meet you right away. We are all so glad that you survived your ordeal, even if it has ended badly for you.
Brandela smiled at Ryyah.
Strangely, it doesn't feel like a bad ending. It feels more like an opportunity. I just don't know to what yet, but I feel that you will be an important part of it. I knew from the moment we met that our destinies were intertwined somehow.
I suppose we'll find out as we go,
suggested Ryyah. Later that day, Brandela noticed that the human rangers were following them. She gave orders for her procession to stop, and they waited for the men to catch up. While the rest of their groups rested, Brandela and Akenji walked along the river and spoke privately.
Why are you following us?
Asked Brandela. Akenji replied in his deep, serious voice.
When I heard that you had also been banished, I figured perhaps you would need an escort to get where you are going. I saw no soldiers amongst you, and I know Donovan would never forgive me if I let anything happen to his wife.
Brandela smiled warmly at Akenji.
I am heading back to retrieve Donovan's body, and then I was thinking about heading north from there to the Eastern Wood Elven clan lords.
I am at your service, my lady.
Brandela, genuinely touched, agreed and thanked him. Over the next few days, Brandela began to experience signs of some sort of illness. She was easily tired and, at times, nauseous and weak. The group soon decided to stop and make camp for a week to give her time to rest and recover. At times, she seemed perfectly fine, but then the exhaustion would hit and she could do nothing but sleep. Food lost its normal appeal and often didn't stay down when she forced herself to eat. Finally, at Ryah's insistence, she allowed one of her maidservants who was trained in healing to examine her. The maidservant said little to Brandela during the examination, but Brandela watched as the young woman's face revealed concern, then surprise, and finally, a frown of worry. She looked at Brandela and then away, as though trying to decide what to say or how to say it.
Is something seriously wrong? Please, just tell me what's wrong,
prompted Brandela.
My lady, I believe you are pregnant.
Brandela's eyes widened and her hands went protectively to her stomach. One part of her was excited and overjoyed at the news. The House of Donovan would not die. They would have a son. But that son would never know his father's touch. With her joy came a renewed wave of great sadness. Brandela looked up as Ryyah and Akenji walked into the room.
What is the diagnosis?
Asked Akenji in his usual serious manner. Brandela looked him straight in the eye and answered without hesitation.
I am going to have Donovan's child.
Akenji stumbled back on hearing the news and laughed very loudly and joyfully.
That's wonderful news.
He exclaimed.
Donovan would be so proud.
He grew quiet and serious again then and added,
Since my friend will not be able to do his duty as a father, I will take the responsibility for this child.
Akenji got down on one knee before Brandela and began to recite the pledge of loyalty. My will is yours. My strength is yours. My loyalty is yours. Command me as you will, mistress, for I am your sword in battle and your shield in times of war and peace. Do with me as you will. When he was done, he rose and kissed her head.
My men will follow.
He promised.
I will have them give you the pledge as soon as you are feeling better. Your child, Donovan's child, shall be protected.
Over the next few days, Brandela had a lot of time to think about her future as a mother and the leader of her household. She wished Donovan could be there to help her plan and to watch their child grow into an adult, for she was beginning to form an idea that at first seemed outrageous, but as she thought more about it, was growing more and more appealing. Within a few more days, she had formulated a solid plan and called Kerala and Akenji to her for counsel.
It is time to move again.
She told them.
Time to start a new life for all of us.
Kerala protested.
We should stay here a while longer, my lady, until you are feeling stronger. It is a long and difficult journey to the eastern Wood Elven territory. Too far for you to attempt in your condition.
We are not going to the Eastern clans anymore. I have a new plan.
Brandela announced.
Donovan and I passed through a wooded area with rich and productive lands on the other side of the river. My child will need good land to govern.
She smiled at Kerala and Akenji's expressions as they struggled to comprehend what she was suggesting.
Akenji, take a few men and go to the caverns. If there is anything left of Donovan's body or his belongings, bring it to me. I will be leading our people a few leagues southeast of the river bend. We'll be crossing the Ksheri, and I will choose a site on the eastern shore to set up a settlement. When you return, you will be rewarded for your loyalty.
Akenji did not question her words, but bowed and left to gather his two best men. Brandela noticed the way Kerala's eyes followed Akenji's departure and the wistful look that momentarily crossed her freckled face.
Do you like him?
Questioned Brandela. Kerala looked surprised, then blushed deeply.
He is human,
She said, as though that should explain every confused emotion, thought and feeling that was running through her. Brandela understood completely. Her hands went to her belly, to the proof that such a union could take place. And she smiled at Kerala, but said no more about it.
Prepare the women to take down the camp and move out in the morning.
She instructed. The next day, Brandela led her people across the upper Ksheri River and headed towards the wooded lands southeast of the river bend. Donovan had pointed out the land on the eastern side of the river to her as they were traveling north. It was good land, he had told her. It would be a good place to start. 1 week later, Akenji located their new camp and placed Donovan's remains in front of Brandela's tent. Brandela touched her husband's blood-stained sword and gazed down at his lifeless form, silently thanking him for his sacrifice and his love.
Garrock's remains were there as well.
Akenji told her.
Donovan did what he set out to do. He avenged Elena's death and saved you as well. He will be peaceful in death.
Brandela nodded sadly and ordered her servants to wrap Donovan's remains in silk cloth and make preparations for a burial service. She then turned her attention back to Akenji.
Thank you, my friend, for this service. It means more to me than you may ever know.
Akenji placed his hand to his chest and replied,
He was my friend as well. It will be good to see him honored and buried properly.
Brandela smiled then and said,
I seem to recall promising you a reward when you returned.
Akenji frowned.
No reward is necessary, my lady. I was honoring my friend and doing my duty.
Nevertheless, I promised you a reward and you shall have it,
answered Brandela. She called Kerala into the room and was pleased to see the slightest smile reach the corners of Kerala's lips when she saw Akenji standing there. Akenji's eyes never left Kerala as she came into the room and knelt before Brandela. Without looking down at Kerala, Brandela announced,
I give you my head maidservant to take as a wife for your reward. If you are willing, the bonding ceremony will be performed after Donovan's body is properly buried.
Kerala and Akenji stared at Brandela, both completely taken by surprise.
Are you certain that these are your orders?
Questioned Akenji.
This is my offer, not my order,
Brandela explained.
I am certain that the time has come for our races to live in peace. together. I am certain that I do not want my child to be the only one of his kind, half human and half elf. He will need servants, friends, people of his own kind. The House of Donovan will be the house of the first half-elves. With my knowledge of elven organized breeding methods, I will grow him a kingdom that will bring together the best of both our worlds. I believe this is possible, and it will start with you two. Are you willing?
Kerala and Akenji looked at each other, then turned back to Brandela. In unison they answered, "Yes, my lady, we are willing."
You and Kerala must have several children, for you are amongst the best stock I have. I know the survivors of your group are the strongest and most skilled men of your tribe, Akenji, and I have selected 100 of the best elven maidens I could find. My child will need capable leaders under him, and your descendants will aptly suffice. There will be many weddings here in the next couple of months, and some of your men may have more than one mate.
More than one mate?
Questioned Kerala.
How is that possible?
Humans do not bond in the same way as elves do,
Explained Brandela.
Their bond is less stable. They may be distracted or attracted by another, even after being bonded to one woman.
Brandela laughed as Kerala looked at her incredulously.
This is still all very new, of course. I don't have all the answers, and there will be some trial and error involved, I am sure of that, but we will figure it out. But I do suspect that the human males will be able to bond to multiple wives. Normally, I would not approve of more than one mate, but our numbers are small at the moment, and we have a kingdom to grow. But first, I have a husband to bury.
Brandela dismissed them and went to where Donovan's body was being prepared for burial.
You will be a father soon,
She told him.
and your descendants will be kings and queens in their own land.
She hoped that he would be pleased with her course, for it was set in stone now, and there was no turning back. Tilda. Brandela made good on her plans to build a new kingdom, and the House of Donovan flourished. Little did she know that her actions would directly result in one of the largest civil wars the Wood Elves would ever come to know. The end.
Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and follow our channel. This is a Watson Lee Publishing production, copyrighted, all rights reserved.